Chapter 1: The First Kill. Rorschach's worn shoes scuffed against the grimy pavement as he trudged through the gloomy back alleys of New York City. The pale glow of the streetlights barely penetrated the thick, swirling mist that clung to the air. He tugged his tattered trench coat tighter around him, his breath forming small clouds in the chill of the night. The investigation into the series of gruesome murders had consumed his thoughts, and he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this case. The viciousness of the killings, the precision with which they were carried out, it all pointed to a perpetrator with a twisted mind and a penchant for theatrics. As Rorschach trudged through the desolate streets, his pulse quickened with a mix of anticipation and dread. He came to a halt as he reached the scene of the most recent murder. The flashing lights of police cars bathed the alley in a sickly red glow. Rorschach's gaze swept over the gruesome tableau, a lifeless body, its blood pooled on the cobblestones, the ghastly expression frozen on the victim's face. The stench of death hung heavy in the air, and the distant wails of sirens pierced the silence. "Another one," a grizzled detective muttered as he approached Rorschach. "Butchered just like the others. We're no closer to catching this maniac than we were before." Rorschach remained silent, his mask shifting subtly with each exhalation, resembling an ever-changing ink blot. "There's something different about these killings, something we're not seeing," Rorschach said, his tone low and gravelly. The detective scoffed. "Save your psychobabble for someone else, Rorschach. We've got a killer on the loose, and we need to stop him before he strikes again." Rorschach tuned out the detective's dismissive words, his mind absorbed in unraveling the cryptic patterns of the killer's methods. He knelt beside the victim, examining the gruesome display with a keen eye. The signature brutality of the murder sent a chill down his spine. As he retreated from the crime scene, Rorschach's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of evidence and speculation. The grim reality of the situation weighed heavily on him, driving him deeper into the shadows of the city. A low, guttural moan echoed through the night, stirring a flock of pigeons into a frenzied flight. Rorschach's senses honed in on the sound, and he pivoted towards its source. In the dim recesses of the alley, a hulking figure emerged, cloaked in darkness. A fleeting glint of malevolent amusement flickered in the stranger's eyes before he descended into the shroud of the night. Rorschach, undeterred by skepticism, delved deeper into the murky underworld, convinced the killer's identity lay hidden within its darkest corners. Rorschach's pulse quickened, his fingers curling into fists at his sides. The enigmatic figure's fleeting presence had confirmed his suspicions. The killer was watching, reveling in the chaos he sowed. There was no doubt now that this was no ordinary murderer. This was someone who thrived on the terror they instilled, and Rorschach vowed to unearth the truth behind the malevolent force that haunted the city's streets.
Chapter 2: Unraveling Shadows. Rorschach trudged back to his makeshift sanctuary, a dilapidated apartment that mirrored the desolation of his soul. The flickering glow of the solitary bulb bathed the room in a dim, sallow light. He paced the sparse confines, the floor creaking beneath his weight. The scrawled journal lay open on the rickety table, the inked accounts of his vigilant pursuits scrawled with meticulous precision. With ink-stained fingers, Rorschach's hand trembled as emerging patterns and connections coalesced in his mind. A shrill ring pierced the air, shattering the brooding silence. Rorschach's worn fingers fumbled for the antiquated telephone, its shrill insistence echoing through the room. "Speak," Rorschach's gravelly voice rumbled through the receiver, devoid of any pretense of warmth. "Walter, it's Dan," a familiar voice crackled through the line. "Night Owl," Rorschach acknowledged, his voice a gritty monotone. "I've been going over the case files, and I think I've found something." "Meet me at the Owl's Nest Cafe in an hour," Dan urged. Rorschach grunted in affirmation before slamming down the receiver, his mind already racing with speculative deductions. The Owl's Nest Cafe exuded an old-world charm, its dimly lit interior adorned with a motley assortment of patrons. Rorschach's trench coat billowed around him as he navigated through the clamor, a stark figure weaving through the muted bustle. "Rorschach, over here," Dan waved him over from a secluded booth, his expression etched with concern. "What did you find, Night Owl?" Rorschach's voice registered sharp and unyielding. Dan slid a worn dossier across the table, the frayed edges testament to the countless hours he'd poured over its contents. The manner of the killings, the patterns. It all points to a series of murders in London, over a century ago. They called him Jack the Ripper. Rorschach's mask shifted, the black and white patterns morphing in response to his mounting apprehension. History repeating itself. Must find the connection. Dan nodded gravely, his finger tracing the faded documents. The method, the precision. It's uncanny, Walter. We need to delve deeper into the past to understand the present. A gust of cold wind swept through the cafe, carrying with it an eerie undercurrent that set Rorschach's nerves on edge. The erratic hum of the city outside seemed to fade into a distant thrum. There's more to this than we can perceive, Night Owl. The killer's watching, waiting to emerge from the shadow. Rorschach's conviction rang through the somber atmosphere. Dan inclined his head, an unspoken understanding passing between them. We'll uncover the truth, Walter. We have to. As the dim haze of the Owl's Nest Cafe embraced them, Rorschach and Night Owl set their sights on unraveling the menacing shroud that enshrouded their city, their resolve pulsing beneath the skin of
Chapter 3, Veil of Deception. The dread of impending revelation hung heavy in the air as Rorschach and Night Owl delved deeper into the labyrinth of obscure history and elusive truths. Their tireless pursuit led them to an antiquated repository, its vaulted archives cloaked in sepulchral gloom. The answers are concealed here, Night Owl, Rorschach intoned, his voice a rasping cadence of determination. Night Owl nodded, his scholarly inclinations piqued by the prospect of deciphering the cryptic remnants of the past. Let's split up and comb through the documents. We might find something that ties the past to our present predicament. As the subdued illumination of the repository cast elongating shadows across the shelves, Rorschach and Night Owl buried themselves in the enigmatic annals. Their fingers danced over age-worn parchment, unraveling the whispers of bygone eras. Hours ebbed into a purgatorial limbo as Rorschach studied a faded manuscript, its words an enigmatic cipher. The meticulous scrutiny of each phrase yielded no immediate revelation, leading him to contemplate the distorted illusion that shrouded their adversary. There's mention of a clandestine order, Night Owl. Rorschach's voice rang through the repository's hushed ambience. Night Owl emerged from a chasm of tomes, his eyes alight with a glimmer of intrigue. A clandestine order? What do you make of it? The overarching manipulation, the calculated precision of the killer's methods. The pieces align to weave an intricate tapestry of deceit, Rorschach mused, his mind forging connections through the obscure veil of history. Night Owl leaned in, his intellect amplified by the allure of clandestine machinations. Could this order be our elusive adversary's allegiance? Rorschach's mask contorted, its ever-shifting form a testament to the tumultuous currents within him. The tendrils of conspiracy reach beyond the veil, Night Owl. There's no room for coincidence in the shadow's embrace. Their collective scrutiny of the historical enigma harmonized with the realization that the threads of their investigation were converging towards an indelible truth. The weight of revelation hung palpably in the repository, a portentous alliance with the unknown that drove Rorschach and Night Owl to unravel the sinister tapestry that enshrouded their city. As their collective resolve bristled against the suffocating veils of obscurity, Rorschach and Night Owl coalesced into an unwavering force, poised to shatter the cloistered deceptions that had eluded elucidation for centuries.
Chapter 4, Shadows Converge. Rorschach's worn boots echoed through the lonesome alleyways, each step a resolute cadence as he navigated the desolate underbelly of the city. The pervasive silence was a harbinger of the looming confrontation that lay on the precipice of their relentless pursuit. A furtive whisper of footsteps trailed behind him, a clandestine presence edging closer through the shrouded seclusion. Rorschach steeled himself, his instincts honed to the imminent clash that lingered on the horizon. Rorschach, a sibilant voice slithered through the night, imbued with a veiled malevolence. The figure emerged from the obsidian shadows, his visage a chiaroscuro of enigma and malevolent intent. Captain Carnage loomed in the spectral pallor of the night, a behemoth cloaked in the cloak of sadism. Captain Carnage, Rorschach's voice resonated like a primal rasp, the tension etched into the dark cataracts of his mask. The malevolent curvature of Captain Carnage's lips belied a savagery that festered beneath his facade. "I've been watching your little charade, Rorschach. You're poking your nose where it doesn't belong." Rorschach's gnarled fists coiled into sinewy knots, his resolve unyielding against the looming tempest. "Each step brings us closer to unveiling the shadows that you cower within." A grating chuckle cascaded from Captain Carnage, an unsettling symphony of derision that reverberated through the desolation. You delude yourself, Rorschach. Your persistence only quickens the inevitable. Their furtive dance of confrontation swirled in the phantasmal obscurity, their conflict a maelstrom that brewed beneath the city's veneer. Rorschach and Captain Carnage bore witness to the veritable chaos that thrived beneath the facade of civility. Your reign of terror ends tonight. Rorschach's voice possessed a timbre of righteousness, a declaration etched in the annals of the night. Captain Carnage's gait coalesced into a primal lunge, his chain weapon a tempestuous arc that sought to ensnare his vigilant adversary. The brazen clash of their conflict rent the air, each calculated strike a reverberation of their tenacious struggle. Their brutal exchange traversed the realm of shadows, a symphony of violence that surged through the lonesome alleyways. Rorschach's unyielding perseverance clashed with Captain Carnage's sadistic rage, a discordant sonnet of chaos and retribution that resounded through the punitive gloom. As the tempest of their confrontation eclipsed the night, Rorschach and Captain Carnage grappled with the visceral embodiment of their vehement conflict, their relentless struggle fueled by an indomitable resolve that transcended the city's sordid facade.
Chapter 5, Unveiling the Enigma. The shadowed enclave that bore witness to Rorschach and Captain Carnage's primal clash lay shrouded in the vestiges of their tumultuous encounter. Rorschach's welted frame stood as a testament to his unyielding struggle, his tattered resolve etched into the bloody tapestry of the night. A salient silence punctuated the forlorn alleyway, the residual tremors of their conflict lingering in the oppressive stillness. Rorschach's exerted breaths emerged as ethereal wisps, tendrils of his unyielding tenacity that coalesced with the nocturnal expanse. Captain Carnage, Rorschach's voice echoed with an indomitable resonance, the weight of his conviction evident in the fairest cadence. Captain Carnage's bronze form lay ensconced within the expansive shroud, his malevolent presence akin to an undulating specter. Your obstinate pursuit will only yield your demise, Rorschach. The enigma that veils this city's darkness is impervious to your futile endeavors. Rorschach's tenebrous mask bore the indelible testimony of his relentless battle, the shifting black and white patterns a testament to the inscrutable resolve that ruminated within him. The pieces of the puzzle converge. Your twisted machinations have festered beneath the guise of shadows for too long. A derisive chuckle emanated from Captain Carnage, a symphony of malevolence that rent the silence asunder. You merely scratched the surface of an abyss you cannot fathom, Rorschach. The depths of our enigma elude the sanctity of your conviction. Their exchange echoed with a palpable undercurrent of antipathy, each word a tempest that swirled through the lonesome alleyway. Rorschach and Captain Carnage bore witness to the indelible amalgamation of their discord, the tenacious struggle transcending the cloaked veil of the city's malevolence. Glimmering embers of resolve illuminated Rorschach's sable eyes, an undying fervor that transcended the encroaching night. The truth has a clandestine allure that evades those who dwell within the filth of deceit. You are no exception, Captain Carnage. A languid sneer graced Captain Carnage's visage, a caustic amalgamation of exultant derision. Your quixotic idealism blinds you to the eternal shroud that envelops our city, Rorschach. Embrace the abyss that awaits you, for the enigma will be your demise. Their resolute exchange bore testament to the veritable tempest that surged through the labyrinthine heart of the city, an unyielding struggle that defied the suffocating embrace of the nocturnal expanse. As their discord converged into a symphony of unyielding fervor, Rorschach and Captain Carnage stood as symbiotic embodiments of their relentless conflict, poised to unearth the veritable enigma that enshrouded the lonesome city within its furtive confines. The rain came down in relentless sheets, drumming against the cracked asphalt like a mournful dirge echoing through the desolate city streets. The damp air hung heavy with the promise of impending revelation, the tension coalescing into a palpable force that charged the atmosphere. Amidst the gloom, two figures materialized like phantoms emerging from the shadows cast by the flickering streetlights. Captain Carnage, his bulky form cloaked in a grotesque costume adorned with a skull motif, exuded a menacing aura that seemed to seep into the very fabric of the night. His chain weapon glinted ominously, an extension of his sadistic will. Opposite him stood Rorschach, the enigmatic vigilante who had made it his relentless mission to comb the urban decay for the threads of justice. His trench coat billowed in the gusts of wind, and the ink-blot mask upon his face seemed to shift and contort, mirroring the dissonance within his fractured psyche. David, your reign of terror ends here, Rorschach's gravelly voice sliced through the deluge, etching determination and resolve into the air. Captain Carnage emitted a low, rumbling chuckle that curdled like poisoned honey. Ah, little brother. What a delightful surprise. You've always been too naive to see the truth lurking beneath the surface. The air crackled with anticipation as the tension spiraled to an electric crescendo, the weight of years of rivalry and obscure truths unfurling between the estranged siblings. You abandoned our family, David. Rorschach's words were a cascade of condemnation and sorrow, reverberating with the resonance of a soul scarred by the sins of the past. Captain Carnage sneered, his twisted grin a cruel mockery of familiarity. Our family was weak, Walter. I embraced the chaos, reveled in the power it offered. You were always too blinded by your rigid, righteous ideals to understand. Their confrontation veered into a violent ballet of ferocity and desperation, words twisted into weapons as the truth unraveled like a decaying tapestry. Why, David? Why did you become Captain Carnage, a wretched embodiment of suffering and torment? Rorschach's voice trembled with the weight of years spent bearing the burden of his brother's sins. The clatter of the chain against pavement was like a symphony of impending reckoning as Captain Carnage bellowed, I am the reaper of justice in a city that has forsaken such concepts. I revel in the fear and pain, embracing the chaos that thrives within the hearts of men. With a guttural roar, Rorschach surged forward, his fists becoming emissaries of retribution, each strike a tempest of anguish and fury. The cacophony of their brawl intermingled with the relentless downpour, an operatic ode to the dismantling of deceptions and the birth of catharsis. As the tempestuous dance of violence escalated, the truth emerged like a specter from the tendrils of the night. Captain Carnage, the embodiment of malevolence, was none other than David Kovacs, Rorschach's long-lost brother, ensnared in a maelstrom of darkness and despair. With a final, resolute blow, Rorschach rent through the veil of siblinghood and demolished the facade of malevolence, severing the sinister legacy. The unearthly scream of annihilation shattered the dampened air, intermingling with the anguished moans of a soul torn asunder. In the wake of the tempest, Rorschach knelt amidst the debris of their savage confrontation, the truth heavy upon his shoulders like the weight of a world undefined. As the rain continued to weep from the ink-black sky, he knew that justice bore a visage veiled in the obsidian threads of his fractured reflection.